Hello and welcome to day 19. Now yesterday Doris commented that she would like a longer vlog because I always seem to be in a rush and heading off somewhere. So today, Doris, your wish is my command. I am sorry if it seems like I'm always rushing off somewhere, but the 10-15 minutes that you see actually takes about 2 hours out of my day. So there is more to it than me just sitting here in front of a camera and then you watching the result. There are things that have to be done in between, savings and editings and uploadings, and it all takes time. So I have been trying to keep them short because there are a lot of people vlogging, and I know that a lot of people who watch me watch other podcasters as well who are vlogging, and I personally have had to cut down on the vlogs that I'm watching every day because I can't keep up. So every day I'm watching Denise from Dear Designs, Caroline from Aria Bark, Tonya from Calm as a Stitch. I think they're and obviously Belinda from Belinda's Baubles. They're the only 4 that I'm managing to keep up with every day. Everyone else I'm having to kind of block view when I get a chance. So I know it's the same for everybody. So I am trying to keep them short for that reason as well. But today I am going to be here for a bit longer for you. Which you may live to regret. But I'm going to start today by clearing up a bit of a disaster from yesterday. So yesterday was our last day in Scotland with the adventure around the UK advent. And this was the photograph from yesterday, day 18. Now, when I was putting this advent together, which took a lot of research, I fell in love with this picture. And because I liked the picture so much, I did not do as much research about it as I perhaps should have done. Because Belinda, who has been doing lots of research about everything every day, brought to my attention that this is not, in fact, the National Monument of Scotland. So I went back to where I'd found this picture and read the rest of the article, and it's on the same hill as the National Monument of Scotland, but this is looking down and over Edinburgh. The National Monument of Scotland is further up the hill, and dare I say it, I don't want to offend anyone from Edinburgh or from Scotland in general. It's not as picturesque, let's put it that way. It was a monument to the sailors and soldiers who fell during the Napoleonic Wars. And that's how you say it, Tonya. Napoleonic. I've thrown myself off now. Was it Tonya? No, I think it was Belinda. Somebody was having real trouble with Napoleonic. And trust me, I'm not laughing at you. Let's face it, I'm in a big glass house and should not be chucking any stones around. But for reasons that I will explain later, that was the best thing that happened to me this morning. Come back. Right, so the monument, they began to build it, but they ran out of money. So, and this is like hundreds of years ago, in the 1700s, they ran out of money and they've never managed to finish it. So it's a partially built monument. And the pictures of it that were further down the page, had I carried on looking and not gone like some kind of colour magpie, I want that one, I would have seen the actual National Monument of Scotland and I wouldn't have picked it to go in, I'm afraid, because it was not pretty. Sorry, Edinburgh. Sorry, ghosts of Napoleonic soldiers and sailors. We do still appreciate your sacrifice, but yeah, the monument does not do you justice. So I also forgot to show you Scotland in its entirety, because today we move on to Wales. Now, I have to admit, I did not think about this either when I was putting the advent together. So it's day 19 today. It's our first day in Wales. And I suddenly realised earlier in the week that no one was going to know how to pronounce this unless they were Welsh. It is spelt CWMIDWAL. I might, if I can, put that on the screen down below. Let me do this to remind myself. And it is pronounced Cwm Idwl. That's as close as I can get to it, okay? And bear in mind, my surname is Welsh. My husband is of Welsh descent, but not Welsh enough to know how to pronounce that. I had to go to Google. Right, where is it? Would you like to look at the... I think it's the only unpronounceable one. Yeah. It's the only unpronounceable one in Wales. But boy, have we started with a bang. So, day 19. There you go. Now, I don't know this for certain because I don't speak Welsh. If there are any Welsh speakers watching, feel free to correct my pronunciation and tell me if I'm right. Here in Somerset, which is very close to Wales, we are separated by some water. Coombe means valley. So I'm wondering if the pronunciation is slightly different. Coombe in Welsh, I know it's not quite pronounced like that, also means valley, because that looks like a picture of a valley to me. So you'd like to see the colour, I expect. There you go. There are some greens. There's some goldeny, beigey, mountainy colour in there. Someone messaged me this morning and said, finally some green. I think I disappointed them bitterly with Ireland. They'd expected every day to be green from Ireland. And I've tried very, very hard not to make everything green. As I mentioned earlier, it would have been very easy just to do the whole thing green and brown. I've tried hard not to do that. So, now that we've all recovered from my probably hideous pronunciation of today's place of interest, shall we move on to a different advent? Let's. Little Likac, day 19, Indigo by Alice Hoffman. I wonder whether, actually, I ought to spend the rest of the year working through this list of books and reading them. It's an idea. Let's have a look. Ooh. Ooh. Not quite what I was expecting, but I can see how it See, words have abandoned me, Belinda. That's because I laughed. It's my fault. Was it Belinda? I think it was. I know I commented on whoever's vlog it was that I was watching. It was either Belinda or Karen from Recreational Knitting. That's the other one. I knew there were 5. That's the other one that I'm keeping up with every day. It was either Belinda or Karen, I think. I'm going to have to go back and look now. Shall I show you today's colour? I know it seems like I've forgotten. Here we go. Very pretty. And would you like to see how it looks with all its brothers and sisters? This is getting very full now. But I'm going to persevere. Mainly because I can't be bothered to get a longer cable out. Okay. There you go. Some of them have got a bit buried. Let's have a bit of a reorganisation. Hang on. Hang on. Hang on to your hats. We're getting there. Where do you go? There. Okay. Okay. There we are. That's all of them so far. And we're on... Well, we're on the countdown really, aren't we? The last 6 before Christmas Day. Okay. That's on the floor then. Come back. Don't be difficult. Right. I'm going to open Discreet Unicorn. I really doubted myself then. Discreet Unicorn. And I think we are continuing with the yellow. I did manage to catch up with myself yesterday, so I'll show you that in a minute. Yes. We are moving, from those of you to whom these things are important, from the golden yellows to the more lemony end of the spectrum. I'm hoping we're working our way back to green, because the way the cowl is constructed, we're going to end with the colour that we started with and then Kitchener it together. So it'd be really good if it blended back to green. Then it wouldn't be quite so jarring that if we finish on a different colour. We'll see. There's a few days to go yet. So that one's going to sit on top of there. There's the whole thing so far. It'll pick this for my thumbnail now, you watch. And I have to keep changing it because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Oh, get it all in. There we go. I tell you something. Not only does, I think it's Miriam, make the most beautiful bright colours, but that lady can put a fade together, I tell you. Right, that's for later. And I've left this till last because today, Blue Fern Yarns Advent, I have 2 parcels. Shall I open the yarn first? I think that today we must be starting to come off the green. But I would be wrong. Oh, I don't know, maybe we are. Maybe we are starting to leave it behind a little bit. It's maybe changing tone slightly. Let me show you. These are wound a little more tightly, so they're fitting on a bit longer than the little Likac ones. Okay. So let's try and organise this a little bit. Never mind that end. It's this is the new end that we want to look at. So there are the greens. Oh. I don't know. I'm so proud of myself that I've managed to restrain myself from casting my other project on. I've managed to stick with just doing my sock tubes and my cowl every day and not casting on all the things, because it's been a struggle, believe me. Oh, here it is. Shall we see what's in here? Feels like it might be more than one thing. Oh. Oh. There's a little bag. Oh. And it says Norfolk Apothecary. The Advent is the Apothecary. And this is autumn. And inside, I've got an idea what's inside because I read what was on the back. Oh, there's a little card with a 15% off. People who have the Advent. I probably shouldn't show that because I think there's a QR code. Too late. Right. Oh, look at this. This is a little dangler. I don't know what else to call it. How pretty is that? And into it you put this, which is a scented oil called Autumn. Let's have a sniff. It's a shame it's not smell-o-vision. Oh, that's really nice. It reminds me a little bit of, do you remember 7-Eleven cologne? They still make it, I know they do. Because I've got it's like a stick that I keep in my handbag for when it's hot. You sort of rub it on and it cools you. It reminds me of a cross between that and lavender or something along those lines. That is really nice. And what a gorgeous little, it's a diffuser bottle, so I presume this unscrews, yes, and then you put your oil in there and it diffuses through the wood. I am someone who is very, very sensitive to smells. Good smells, bad smells. I can smell things that no one else in the family can smell. I can tell you if there's something gone off in the fridge when I'm sitting in the living room and someone's just opened it to get the milk out and shut it again. And so I really appreciate things that smell nice, because I feel sometimes like my world is full of things that don't smell nice. I'm going to get my knitting and I'm going to sit and have a little chat with you today. I've got to keep a bit of an eye on the time because we all know about my issues with recording space and storage space and so on. I won't bore you all with it again. let me tell you about this morning and why whoever it was, the more I think about it, the more I think it was Karen. I think it was Karen, who basically has saved me from a bad head. Where does that change? Or perhaps I'll be able to tell as I'm knitting it. For the rest of the day. Where to start? Okay. I have been watching a podcast. I don't know whether to say which one. I don't think I'm going to. But the lady whose podcast it is having a very, very rough time of it. She is very, very poorly. She is having very unpleasant treatment. And not to put too fine a point on it, we're quite lucky that she's still with us as it is. And this lady is the reason that I'm sitting here talking to you today. I don't know her, I've never met her, but I found her podcast and I watched it and I enjoyed it. And at the time I was watching a lot of, and no offence to this lady, I've said this before and to her, so I'm sure she won't be offended. I hope she won't anyway. I was also watching a lot of very curated, almost scripted podcasts. Some American ones, some British ones, where there are walls of beautiful yarn behind them, all, you know, colour coordinated in. See, this is what happens when you laugh at people for not being able to say words. You get punished. Coordinated into squares of all the same shades and, you know. And I was thinking that I would quite like to do a podcast for the main reason that we'd been in, I and others like me had been in lockdown for probably the best part of 2.5 years by then. My world had shrunk to within these walls and trips to the hospital, pretty much. So my life had changed very, very much when I fell ill. Very suddenly, literally overnight, my life was no longer what it had been, and it was impossible for it to go back to that. So once I began to feel a bit better, I realised that what I had to do was find a new life for myself, essentially. And the only way I could do that was virtually. So I had been watching some podcasts and I thought, well, I knit a lot. I've knit for a very, very long time. I don't presume to be the best knitter in the world. I don't presume to be able to teach other people how to do things. I would like to start a podcast. But I was a bit intimidated by all these very polished, glamorous ladies and gentlemen, to be fair, who sat in their beautifully curated yarn rooms and showed their beautiful, expensively made projects. It was all a bit intimidating, and I didn't really know that there was a place for someone who would produce what I do. And I am very shy. It's hard for you to believe, I know. It's hard for most people to believe, but I am very shy. But I watched this particular lady, and after I'd watched her, I also found Caroline from the Aria Bark podcast, who has become one of my best and closest friends. But I hadn't found her yet. So this lady was solely responsible for showing me that you didn't have to be glamorous and look like some kind of movie star. You didn't have to have a beautifully curated backdrop. You didn't need to knit with the most expensive yarns. You didn't have to make the most complicated projects. Really, you just had to be yourself. You just had to share your passion for what you were doing, and the people who would appreciate you would find you. And really, that's what's happened. All of you who are here watching this now, I presume, enjoy spending time with me. And I know that some of you, if we met in real life, as it were, we would enjoy spending time together. So from there, I found Caroline. I followed her on Instagram. Caroline was running Zooms. I took a few weeks gathering my courage, and I joined Zoom, and I met Caroline, and it just snowballed from there, really. That gave me the courage to start a Zoom myself. When I was my first year of podcasting, I did a sock knit along, and I started Zoom as for people who were joining in with the knit along. We could all get together once a week and have a chat about what we were knitting and what have you. And really from there, I found not just Caroline, but the rest of my best and closest friends. So Denise, Tonya, people who I miss if I don't see them. There are more than those three, but they are names that you will recognise. For example, my friend Anne does not have a podcast. She should have, because she knits and she sews and she makes some very, very beautiful quilts. But I haven't seen Anne for, I'm trying to work out how long. And I miss her company. So it's worked out that thanks to this lady and her podcast, I have a better social life, A, than I've ever had before, and B, pretty much than anyone else I know has, and all without leaving the comfort of my own craft room. So I am quite fond of this lady for that reason. She was, if you like, a gateway to finding my new life, finding my new place in the world. And obviously from that came dyeing yarn and now spinning. You could say that were it not for this particular lady, I probably wouldn't be flourishing as much as I am, because my world had shrunk to a very, very small circumference, and really the only people I saw were Dave and Ewan, and occasionally Peter and Lauren, and that was it. So I'm very appreciative of this lady, and as I said at the beginning of my little speech, she's going through a hellish time. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And someone has seen fit to comment on her podcast about the fact that she doesn't particularly look her best at the moment. I'm taking a steadying breath because the words that this particular person used was that she looked crap. Now, this is me calming myself because I could feel my voice getting louder and louder. I find that very offensive. I'm probably, no, I know I am overreacting a little bit. But there have been times in the past when things have been said to me through the comment section of my podcast, and they hurt. They really hurt. I know things can be taken out of context when they are written down. You lose the nuances of speech in the written word, and you can't see somebody's face to see the expressions and the body language that goes with what they're saying. And a lot of our language isn't just words, it's everything that goes with it. As I say, expressions, body language, the whole lot. And it is particularly easy to misinterpret the motive, that's not quite the right word, but the meaning behind something that's written down, if it's written down in a language that isn't your first language. It is quite possible to lose some of the intention behind the words that way. So, really, and I hope it's the case, that those two things may be mitigating circumstances, because that wasn't all that was said. And I don't know what kind of a person you have to be to come uninvited almost into someone's personal space. And yes, it is on the internet, and it is there for anyone who wants to watch and anyone who wants to comment. But to come into that space when you can see someone is going through probably the hardest time of their life at a particularly hard time of year, and on the back of what has not been the best of years, and just be negative. I don't understand the motivation behind that, other than to be spiteful and hurtful. And for what purpose? Does that make people feel good? I don't claim to be the holiest of people on the planet, but I know that if I do or say something good to someone, I feel good. But if I say something bad, I don't feel good. I don't understand it. I genuinely don't understand it. I try to live by the philosophy that if you've got nothing good to say, then don't say anything. And if you're going to say something, ask yourself first, is it necessary? Is it true? Is it kind? And is it any of my business? And really, this isn't any of my business. But it touched a nerve. And I think one of the reasons it touched a nerve was that I have recently been very, very ill myself. And while I was very ill, people often said thoughtless things. I lost a lot of weight because basically I was dying. I don't want to be melodramatic or anything, but I was on the downward slope and I lost a lot of weight. And people would say to me, oh, you do look good now you've lost some weight. And when I say people, I'm talking really, bear in mind, the only people I saw were Dave and Ewan and hospital staff. So I would go to the clinic where I was being very closely monitored every 2 weeks all the way through lockdown, 4-hour round trip to go and see them when no one was supposed to be leaving their homes. And I would go and they would praise me for having lost weight since they'd seen me before. And then I would see my consultant, who would go nuts because I'd lost weight. Losing weight isn't always a good thing. And the other thing, well, there were two other things that were frequently said to me, was, well, you look well, in a kind of an accusing tone. Like I couldn't possibly be that ill if I looked okay. And I expect I look okay to you today. But what you don't know is that I've got a pounding headache, a bit like a hangover, because my kidneys are not working very well. When they're working at their best, I've got about half as much kidney function as any of you watching this. And that means toxins build up in my body. At the moment, I had a virus. It set off my immune system, which has upset my kidneys. My kidneys are inflamed. They're swollen. They're hot. They're bleeding. They're not doing their job. So I feel like I have a hangover all the time. I am constantly so thirsty that my tongue is sore. There are black bags under my eyes, which I've hidden with concealer. Not through vanity, but because I don't feel the need to be validated by the fact that I'm ill. And I do wonder whether the person that made that comment is one of those people who, and we all know somebody like this, they have something wrong with them and they think that's what makes them important. So they have to tell you at every available opportunity that they have this thing wrong with them. Sometimes 3 or 4 times in the same conversation. And it's possible that that person is like that and thinks that by telling the podcaster how dreadful she looks, she's actually doing a good thing, because she is validating the podcaster's place in the universe. She's telling her how important she is because she looks so ill. Which is, it's quite a twisted point of view on the world, but I do know people like that. So, yeah. That's why giggling at, and I'm sure the more I think about it, the more I think it was Karen, giggling at Karen, trying to get her teeth, it was Karen, I remember it was Karen, trying to get her teeth round Napoleonic was just what I needed this morning, because it burst my bubble of angry. And I was so angry, ridiculously angry, because it has nothing to do with me. I had no reason to get angry. It's not my business, but it did make me angry. But Karen popped that bubble, and it was particularly funny when you know what Karen used to do for a living. I'm not going to say, but it had to do with words. Let's just put it that way. So I'm sorry I got a bit heavy and ranty then. I said you'd regret wanting me to be here for longer today, didn't I? I bet you are now. I've put my stripe in my sock. I wasn't quite sure where it was going to finish because it's red. That looks quite orange. And then the next colour, do you see how close they are? But I could see when I got to the end of that red, I could see. I'm going to go away now. Now that I've upset everybody, I bet everybody turned off. They like 20 minutes ago. Everybody went, uh-oh, here she goes. It doesn't happen very often that I get a bee under my bonnet, but that one That one stung me several times, that bee. So I'm going to go away now and remind myself that it is the season of peace and joy and love to all my fellow man, even the ones that annoy me. So, again, sorry for being ranty. It wasn't really my business. And I will see you tomorrow, where I'll try and be in a bit better mood. Bye, guys.